Hello, welcome to Bentley's Backwoods Bushcraft, and this is Richard. Let's make a floating fish trap. Alrighty, so let's look at the materials that we're going to use for this project. Alright, let's see here. I have some wood glue. I have some Gorilla Glue. I used the tops of these hangers right here. See how this loop is right here? I'm using those. I also have a bone, which I may or may not use. A straw, again, may or may not use. But I'm using this piece of wood here, this chopstick. Now, the wood material can be found out in the woods on site at any point in time. I just have these to test out the different triggers to see how they're going to work. Let's see here. I am going to use 6-pound test line. Now, these are items that I actually had to go out and purchase because I didn't have any. These are Stanley 24T by 12-inch bimetal flexible saw blades. They came in a 2-pack. They were about $3 for 2 of them at Walmart, and I purchased 2 packs of these. Now, you're only going to need 1 saw blade per project, but I'm going to make multiple ones. Now, at the Dollar Tree, and I've had these because I was making books. These were the covers of books that I was making some books out of. But right here, clipboards at the Dollar Tree. I just took the top of it off right here, took that off, and I have that. And these also were purchased at the Dollar Tree several years ago. I used these in my 2-liter bottle boat to help keep it afloat. They're just these swimming noodles. And I purchased these at the Dollar Tree. And also, this also came from the Dollar Tree. Just a small pack of nails that was with some like little pack of hanging nails and material, so I'm using those. I did use my awl a little bit, but I didn't necessarily have to, but I did use it a little bit. And I'm using these pair of pliers. I think that's all the material. So let me show you exactly how this is going to look. The first thing I did was I took this noodle and I cut it to the length of these boards, like this here. I just basically set it down there and tried to cut them to length like this. And there's going to be 3 per board, so you're going to need 3 pieces per board. And the noodle that I have gives you 3 of them, and one of them was a tad bit small, but it'll still work. But you're going to need 3 of noodles, and I'm going to use generally the size of the board. What I'm going to do is I'm going to secure these noodles to the back of this board like this. Alright, so I'm going to show you what I just created, and then I'll go through the whole process and actually make one on camera. But this is a floating fish trap. Alrighty, so let's show this real quick at how this works. So as I said before, the spring pole is the saw blade. I have a toggle. I have a trigger stick, and all that's attached to some fishing line with a sinker and a swivel. My spring stick gets pulled down, sits under my U-shaped piece there that's attached to my where my toggle goes. And what happens is I set my bait stick against that toggle, and then it rests on the back end on that nail. There we go. Now, my fishing line is here, and what it does is it will lay over the edge and rest in the creek in the water area. So what happens is when a fish gets a hold of it, boom, it sets the hook, catches the fish, and it's just floating there until I come along and either pull it in or pick it up out of the water. Alright, so we're going to talk about measurements here real quickly. Now again, these don't have to be specific, and they don't have to be the same as what I make. Just because I made mine this way doesn't mean you have to. But this is about an inch, inch and a half in, about center. As well, this one is about an inch, inch and a half in center. And then this one is 4 inches in from the edge and also centered. Basically just make a small mark here for the blade, small mark here for the nail or screw, and then your 2 marks here for your metal piece here. Now again, just measure out how you want your blade to bend and just make your toggle to whatever length you want yours to bend. Same as the stick, just has to be big enough to fit between the toggle and the nail. And then your line, of course, can be as long or as short as you want, depending on how deep you want it to go into the water. Now this one doesn't go very far. I'm mainly going to do creek fishing with this anyway, and a foot or maybe less, but a foot or so is good enough. Maybe 2 feet. Let me even. So now that I got the mark set, what I'm going to do is I will place my spring pole here, and I'll put my screw in. And I'm going to use a screw this time. Last time all I had was nails, and it worked just fine, but I really want to work this with a screw. Just like that. My awl made it a little bit bigger so that I could get my piece, there we go, in. And then down here I'm going to also use another screw instead of the nail that I used the last time, just to see the difference. I'm sure that it'll work. And again, I want it in there, just slightly protruding out the back on all this, just like that. There we go. So that's how this trap is basically set up as far as making it goes. What I do is I'll measure from the screw to this piece here, so I'll know how big to cut it, and I'll give it just a bit more. So what I'm going to do is score it with a knife, just score it around ever so slightly with my knife here, and then that just breaks right off. So now it looks like maybe just a tad bit more. Do it just a tad bit more. And for me, these are always hit and misses. Might have to add or take away a little. The problem is you can't add, so don't ever take too much. You can always remove pieces, but you can't put them back on. And there we go. Score it. There we go. That looks really decent right there. Now, this piece here that I cut off originally can actually serve as a toggle. So what will happen is this toggle will sit here. And there we go. Yeah, that might actually work. Alright, so now that I have all this done, what I'm going to do is turn it over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this Gorilla Glue and I'm just going to put a dab of it right over the top of each of those areas. Right there. 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 And right there. Now, this is going to take several hours to dry. I let it dry overnight. The first one I did, I let it dry overnight. So I'm going to let this dry and then we'll get back and continue on with it once this is dry. Alrighty, so this glue has not dried completely, but it doesn't necessarily have to at this point. I could wait for a whole day, but just for GP, I'm going to squirt a tad bit more on these. There we go. And those will dry by tomorrow. Now, what we're going to do, let me get this out of the way here real quick, is I'm going to take these 3 noodles right here and I'm going to run a bead of this glue down here, just like this. And then they're just going to lay on top of this here. So let me go ahead and do that. Just like that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'll set another one on top of it. And I'm going to move it, there we go, so that the U-ring won't be laying directly onto this table because it'll make it uneven. And then I'll take this heavy object there and just set it, and then there we go, and then that will set overnight and dry. And when it does, then I can just remove the weight and take off this top board, and then we'll be set to continue. Alrighty, so this has been setting for a couple hours. It's definitely going to need much more time to dry well, but for what I'm doing at this point, I should be able to be fine with continuing it. So what I'm going to do is just take a small piece of cordage, run it through the hole at the other end, and just tie a small little knot here. And that's all I'm going to need right there. Alright, so now I'm going to find where I want my toggle. and I'm going to want my toggle right here. So I'll take my piece of cord, or my toggle, and I'll go ahead and tie that on. And any knot you want to use will be fine. There we go. Doesn't have to be too much. That'll be fine right there. So that'll sit just like there. Woo! That's touchy. Sit on there. There we go. There. And then we have that set just like that. Okay. So we'll run this down here. So all we're going to do is just tie this up a tad bit. Right here. Use whatever knot you want. Doesn't have to be anything fantastic or grand. All this is doing is just keeping this trigger stick from getting lost when it's set, because believe me, this thing will flip really bad. So there we are. That's good. So we set the toggle. We set the trigger stick. Like this here. And then we have this running off here. Now, at the end of this, all I have to do is to make a little loop and tie that. There we go. Just make this little loop right here. And then we can run our fishing line through here. So I just take my fishing line, run it through the loop. Again, put my favorite fishing knot on there. And there we go. So now we have the fishing line attached. We'll make it about about 2 feet. So it's going to be about 2 feet long, right there. We'll add this much more here just for GP, and so I can hook it up. So again, swivel, and a small sinker. Right like that, and then we're good to go. And this just gets a hook. And again, I'm not going to put a hook on it right now because I don't want there to be an accident and I catch myself with a hook. So, toggle sets. Trigger set, and that goes into the water. Down it goes. When a fish strikes, sets the hook. Alrighty, so there you go. That's how I created them, and I will be doing another video showing you me using them. I'm not going to do it in this video simply because this video is long enough as it is. So there will be a video coming up soon, hopefully, if the weather gets warmer and stays warmer. But here's my fish trap, and there we go. Set and ready to go. Drop it in the water. I'm going to have to drill a hole up here so that I can make sure that I have a place to tie some cordage to it. And be able to tie it off the bank so that the fish don't run off with it. But we're going to catch some fish. So I like to say thank you for watching Bentley's Backwoods Bushcraft, and enjoy the outdoors, even if it's just your own backyard.